Hi, I'm Dennis Phillips, and welcome to Everyday Reloading and Shooting. All right, welcome back to the channel. Today we're continuing with our powder shootout, but we're in phase 2, and we're looking at the lower charge weights. In the powder shootout competition, we went from 3,000 feet per second to 3,200 feet per second. And on some of these targets, we found that the lowest charge weight at 3,000 feet per second provided the best grouping. And then those groups continued to spread out and get larger as we increase the charge weight. So what we're doing now is we're looking at the lower charge weight because the starting point for this 52 grain bullet is at 2,900 feet per second. So what we're doing is we're going back to 2,900 and we're going to shoot charge weights to get us between 2,900 to 3,000 feet per second in velocity to see if there's a node in there where maybe we get some tighter groupings. So today we're shooting the accurate 2460 powder, and we have charge weights from 22.6 grains to 23.4 grains. So we're shooting 10 shot groups with each of these, and we're going to see if we can find a load in there where we get a tighter grouping. As always, you're welcome to enjoy the music while I fast forward through my shooting, or you can skip forward to the results that follow. Shooting at 100 yards. All right, some of these shot similarly, so let's bring them in and take a look. All right, first group was kind of scattered. It looks like it's probably going to be between 23 grains here. This one's kind of tight. I think this may be a tighter extreme spread overall. This one's pretty tight right here with some flyers right here on the bullseye itself, and then kind of scattered here. But we will take these home and measure these with the Hornady ballistics app, and we'll see how they compare. All right. All right, welcome back. We have the results from the range, and I'm going to share those with you here in just a second. But just in case you're new to the channel and this is your first time watching, if you click on the channel name and then click on videos, you'll see that there's a series of videos entitled Powder Shootout, and we tested 6 different rifle powders, and one of those was the accurate 2460 powder. And so what we did on that particular test, and here's a picture of that target and our best group from that target. We ran charge weights from 3,000 to 3,200 feet per second, and we determined that 3,000 feet was the best grouping. And since the groups got larger and larger as we continued to increase the powder charge, we thought, well, maybe on the lower side of that, there will be some good groups. And so we went and shot this target. And we used charge weights from 22.6 to 23.4, and that gave us velocities of 2,900 to 2,987, so just under that 3,000 foot velocity that we had. So as I go through these one by one, I'm going to give you a close-up of the target itself down here, and I'm going to give you a close-up of the group analysis from the Hornady 52BTHP app, and I'm going to put that up here. And so on the first group at 22.6 grains and 2,900 feet per second, we had an extreme spread of 1.51 inches. The red cross that you see here represents the average center of impact of all of the shots fired, and it corresponds to the white X on the photo here from the Hornady Ballistics app. And in this group, we had an extreme spread of 1.51 inches, but we had a mean radius of 0.43. If you're only measuring extreme spread, you're only looking at 2 data points, and this would be a 1.5 inch group, 1.51, and that would not be considered a really tight shooting rifle. But when you look at the mean radius measures the point of impact of each one of these shots from the average center, and then it averages those. And so the average radius from that center of impact to each other bullet shot is 0.43 inches. And a radius, of course, is a half a circle. So if you double that, that becomes 0.86. That would mean on 10 shots, you've got an average group size of 0.86 inches, meaning you've got a very good chance of hitting a 1-inch target at 100 yards with this round. It's shooting slightly to the right and just over an inch high, but I adjusted the sight so that it would shoot high so as to not destroy the point of aim with the point of impact of these bullets. All right, moving on to the next target. We're at 22.8 grains and 2926 feet per second. And here's our average point of impact. We have an extreme spread of 1.18 inches, and that was the tightest group of the day. But we have a mean radius of 0.46. Now, when you compare that with the previous target, to me, this looks like one of the better groups of the day. The one next to it here looks pretty good as well. But you see these shots, this is a 1.18 inch group, and we're shooting 10 shot groups. So if you're normally shooting under 1 MOA at 100 yards, if you shoot 3 or 5 shot groups, that would give you a good indication. But when you start shooting 10 shot groups, you can expect those to open up, and you can expect there to be flyers. But we had a 1.18 inch extreme spread, but we had a mean radius of 0.46, which gives you an average group size of 0.92. At 23 grains, we're traveling at 2,943 feet per second. Here's our average point of impact, a third of an inch high and a quarter of an inch to the left. And we have an extreme spread of 1.23 inches, so a reasonably tight group for 10 shots at 100 yards. But we had a mean radius of 0.44, which translates into 0.88 average group size. Going on to number 4, we're at 23.2 grains, and we're at 2,961 feet per second. We have an extreme spread of 1.41, so the group is opening up a bit, still shooting a little high and a little to the left, still about 0.2 of an inch to the left, and just under a half an inch high. But that is starting to come down, it looks like, the barrel torquing, because of that increased charge weight. But here we've got a cluster. We've got 5 shots right here that are really tight together. But then we've got 3 shots down here and a flyer here and a flyer here. So that throws our mean radius off and gives us a 0.44 mean radius, which translates into a 0.88 average group size. At 23.4, we're going at 2,987 feet per second. I expected this to be better because that's pretty close to that 3,000 foot per second load. It was 23.5 versus 23.4 here. So not a whole lot of difference between the two. But here we're at just almost an inch and a half at 1.44 inches. And the thing is, with this flyer down here, if you were to take that flyer out of the equation, you would be at 1.26 inches, right at an inch and a quarter. We're shooting 0.8 of an inch high and just slightly to the left. And we have a mean radius of 0.51. So that gives us an average group size of just over an inch. So starting to open up there. But if you want to talk about which were our best groups, it's going to be between number 1 and number 2, because on the first group, we had an extreme spread of 1.51, but we had a mean radius of 0.43, which translates into an 8.6 group size. But when you go to the 22.8, we have a tighter group, and in fact, this was our best group of the day at 1.18 inches. And if you take that flower out and measure it from here, it's going to be right at 1 inch even with 9 out of 10 shots. But the mean radius was 0.46, because you see here, you see how this is kind of a horseshoe shape, these bullets, and the average center is right here, about 0.8 of an inch from the point of aim and just 0.4 of an inch over, but it's in the center of that group. And so the average distance to each one of these shots from that average center is 0.02 of an inch further. So between group 1 and group 2, you've got a mean radius of 0.43 versus a mean radius of 0.46. So that's 0.03 of an inch difference in mean radius. But if you look at the group size, you've got a difference of 151 to 118. And so the 1.18 to me seems like that would be the better grouping at 22.8. But when you compare that to what we did previously, and here's a photo of that target, at 23.5, at 3,000 feet per second, we had an extreme spread of 0.86 inches, so a very tight group, under an inch with 10 shots. And we had a mean radius of 0.34, which translates into a group size of 0.68. So a 0.68 group with 10 shots at 100 yards, that's going to be your best load, is the 23.5 grains at 3,000 feet per second. And of course, we're talking about a 52 boat tail hollow point bullet here. There are a lot of other grain weights of bullets, some lighter, many that are heavier. And so we might want to run this test with some heavier bullets, but this would be an excellent round if you're shooting varmints like coyotes or ground squirrels or rock chucks. At 3,000 feet per second, this may shoot differently in your rifle, but it shot well in mine, and I suspect it would probably shoot well in yours too. So 23.5 grains of accurate 24-60 and a 52 grain boat tail hollow point bullet should give you some good results. Okay, so if you have any thoughts, ideas, suggestions, or questions, please put that below. I always appreciate your input, and I try to interact with everybody that leaves a comment. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. And as always, thank you for watching.